I sent it to you on chat, the link. Okay. Okay, just making sure. Can all of you see my board? Like, can you see the presentation that we have here?
Yes, can see.
Okay, great. Sounds good. So, thanks everyone for joining. We will be discussing a little bit about the overview of the Math Olympiad program that happens over 100 countries all across the world. So that's the main goal of today's session. I plan it to make it a three-part session. The first part, we will get right into the point. What are the benefits of participating in Maths Olympiad? So we will start with that. So even before we know what is a Maths Olympiad, what is a real Maths Olympiad rather, and how to prepare for it, we will first talk about the benefits of it, because that will give us a motivation to go to the next stage. The next thing we will talk about is how to prepare for it. And the last thing that we will discuss today is what is Maths Olympiad after all. So there will be some technical and philosophical remarks at the end of that session. So that's how I plan to split it out. Now, if any of you have any questions in between, feel free to drop in. This is also broadcasted in YouTube and Facebook, so you can ask questions there as well. So let's start with the very simple question: what are the benefits of Maths Olympiad? In fact, I've listed here only three of them, but there are, of course, these are just examples of what can be done after you have successfully qualified at a certain level of Maths Olympiad in India and in the world. So what happens is that at every level of in every country, and this happens over 100 countries all over the world. In every country, there are different levels of Maths Olympiad, and and there is a national level of the contest. So, what is this national level of Mathematics Olympiad? Well, it is usually a 6-problem, 3 to 4.5 hour contest. There are only 6 problems in that contest. And these 6 problems are all subjective in nature, which means that you have to write a detailed answer, a solution, or a proof. It's not a multiple choice thing. So at the national level, for example, India has Indian National Math Olympiad, which usually is conducted in the month of January or February. There are 6 problems, and about 600 students from all around the country participate in it. There are several other levels before you can even get to Indian National Math Olympiad. So, for example, if to first take the pre-rmo, which is taken by thousands of kids, tens of thousands of kids all around the country, that happens in the month of August. Then then there is RMO, which is Regional Maths Olympiad, which then leads to Indian National Math Olympiad. So let's not go into that complication. Let's focus on National Math Olympiad, which happens in the month of January. What happens if you do really well in the National Math Olympiad, if you are selected? Well, these are some of the things that will happen. For example, the Chennai Mathematical Institute, which is one of the premier mathematics institutions in India, and Indian Statistical Institute, which is also one of the best statistics schools and mathematics schools in India, they will waive the written exam, the written entrance of to get into their program. So these are very challenging written entrances. Only 25 kids from all over the country are selected in the ISI or Indian Statistical Institute's BMath program. And in Chennai Mathematical Institute, about 50 to 60 students are selected all over the country. They have a written test and then they have an interview. What happens is, if you qualify for the National Math Olympiad, then you do not have to take the written test in these two prestigious schools. You can directly go for the interview. If you do well in the interview, you'll get into the school. Okay, that's one thing that happens. Another thing that happens is, this is UCLA Department of Mathematics. So this is in United States. This is one of the most prestigious schools of mathematics in the United States. In fact, one of the greatest mathematicians of our times, Dr. Terence Tao, is in this particular department. One of the best departments of mathematics in the world. It has something called an undergraduate merit scholarship. What happens is, if you qualify at a national level math Olympiad, whether it's in India, whether it's in Bangladesh, whether it's in Singapore, United States, every country has a national level math Olympiad. If you qualify for a national level math Olympiad, then you get a direct full scholarship into this particular school. This is just one example, like 3 examples, 2 from India, 1 from United States. And this is usually true for most of the premier universities of the world. If you do well at a national level math Olympiad, then you get a full scholarship or some sort of a direct entry point into these prestigious places. And you get to work with some great mathematicians all across the board. So, yes, I mean, if you are in the direct, Orithro is asking that whether you are getting a direct call to interview. Yes, yes, that's since 2008, awardees do get a direct call to the interview without having to write the written test. So at our website, cheenta.com, we have many more resources like this, many more opportunities that students get when they actually prepare and qualify different levels of Maths Olympiad. There is another part to this. Suppose you are planning to go for higher education. Maybe you want to do research at a great university, or you want to go to a prestigious graduate school, even after bachelor's level. Maybe you want to do a great master's, get into a great master's program, or a great PhD program, or a great postdoc program. At each of these, in each of these places, okay, there is a background noise. In each of these places, let me mute that person. Okay, someone. Okay. Can you, JKIE channel, can you mute it? Okay, thank you. So, as I was saying, that if you want to do that in the long run, so if you want to have a long-term perspective into what you want to do with your academic career, then that also makes sense, because you want to create a resume at some point. You want to create a resume at some point where you want to make yourself differentiated from the other applicants. If there are 50 applicants in a school, okay, I just mute. If there are 50 applicants in a school, then if your resume contains your achievements in a national level or even a regional level Maths Olympiad, that creates a differentiating structure. Okay, so the reason this happens is because of the nature of this contest. It is one of the hardest contests in the entire world as far as school students are concerned. So that brings us to the second part of our discussion, that is, Well, that is how to prepare for it. Notice that I have not yet discussed what is Maths Olympiad after all. So I'll come to that in the third part because that's probably one of the most relevant sections. But I'll briefly talk about how to prepare for it first. This is not for every child. I know that there are several private organizations which conduct um, contests with the name of Maths Olympiad. I mean, this is a disgrace at some point because all they're doing is they're trying to market their product, and that those contests have really nothing to do with the actual mathematics Olympiad. So those contests, I mean, if you appear for them, the questions are not even similar, and obviously, if you do well in those, nothing really happens at the end of the story. So it's really a private organization coming to your school, coming to your doorstep, telling you, okay, we have a contest. They name it Maths Olympiad, and they just say, okay, why don't you buy this? Why don't you buy the books which are related to this? And they usually have a contest with 20 questions, 25 questions, solve it within 60 minutes, all multiple choice type. This is very different from what the actual Maths Olympiad is. For example, in the actual International Maths Olympiad, international one, I was talking about national one a few minutes earlier. At the actual International Maths Olympiad, there are 6 problems, and you get 9 hours to solve it. So per problem, you get 1.5 hours to solve. It's a very different ballgame. It's a completely different thing altogether. Unfortunately, there is a total lack of awareness of what the actual Maths Olympiad is, and parents and teachers usually fall for these private organizations who are peddling some of their personal contests, internal contests in the name of Maths Olympiad. And I don't have a problem with that, but the problem is this, that the questions that they put out, they are nowhere they were not even in spirit similar to the actual Maths Olympiad. There are very good contests as well created by private or semi-private organizations. For example, AMTI, the Association of Mathematical Teachers of India, they have a sequence of contests called, AMTI math contests, which are good for second, third, fourth, fifth grade students, sixth grade, seventh grade students. Those are in spirit similar to the actual Maths Olympiad. So my suggestion would be to parents and students and teachers is this: do not randomly go for a contest. First, if you really want your student to think differently, if you really want your students to act differently when they face a problem, then choose contests which are at least in spirit similar to the actual Maths Olympiad. In India, you can only appear for the first round of actual Maths Olympiad in class 8. That creates a problem because what to do before class 8? So before class 8, you can actually, we suggest the students to go for these AMTI contests, which are in spirit at least similar to the Maths Olympiads. Okay. Now, how to prepare for it? As I was saying, there are 4 major topics: number theory, combinatorics, algebra, and geometry. These are the 4 major topics of Maths Olympiad. And when you look into each of them and you try to solve problems from each of them, you realize that there is not a single book of formulas that you can just learn and do the problems. That's not how it works. You cannot just, it's very different from the school or engineering entrances. There is no templating process. I mean, there is no, you try this problem and a very similar problem comes to in the test. That doesn't happen. Usually, every problem is different. Every problem makes you think. And even if you have a bunch of formulas at your hand, Even if you have a formula book open to you, you might not be able to solve it. In fact, there are many maths Olympiads which allow students to take problems to their homes. For example, there is Duke Math Contest, and there is Stanford. Stanford has a maths Olympiad like entrance for school students for their School of Gifted, which allows students to work on problems from their homes. So it's not that you need to know a bunch of theorems and a bunch of formulas and you're done. That's not how it works. So how do you prepare for it? What you do is, firstly, one of the best ways to do it is to get hold of beautiful books which contain beautiful ideas, problems, and more problems you do, the better experience you have. So that is kind of similar with the school preparation, I guess. So this particular presentation that I have has a book list. You can access that. I'll share this presentation at the end of the discussion. So you can always look into the book list and you can sort of work on those books. These are really this is a really great collection of books and problems. These problems are all collected from Maths Olympiad. And not only that, the authors share mathematical insights, how to really love the subject, how to really fall in, engage with the problems, how to think out of the box. No one can teach you that. But what can happen is when you try many of these problems, you become accustomed to thinking out of the box. Some of these problems can take weeks to solve. So the student should really think about these problems as a sport, like a prolonged chess game. This is very different from how the school problems or the engineering entrances work. What the engineering entrances do is they will ask you to solve a bunch of problems within 60 to 120 minutes time. So what they are really asking you to do is to memorize some results and spit out those or process those things in a limited amount of time. In spirit, that is very different from what the Maths Olympiad is asking you to do. The Maths Olympiad is asking you to really think on the problem, dwell on the problem, and work hard toward a solution over a prolonged period of time. Maybe it will take 1 month. We have hundreds of students working with us right now all over the world. And what happens is, over the time, this transformation happens. That students, instead of thinking about short-term multiple choice gains, they start looking at the problem from a larger perspective. And they learn how to devote time over a prolonged period. So this is in spirit different. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you. Because you see, if I am interested in 2-minute noodles, I will never have the patience to wait for the biryani. And in the real world, that's the biryani that matters. For example, imagine if you are telling a scientist that you have to solve the COVID-19 problem, you have to find a vaccine within 60 minutes time. This is your problem. This is an engineering entrance. This is a medical entrance. You have this virus. You have to solve it within 60 minutes time. And if the mindset of the scientist is like this, that, okay, this is like an entrance, I have to solve it within 60 minutes. That never happens. That's not how actual innovation or research happens. Innovation or research requires patience. It requires a longer time horizon. It requires a sort of persistence, which is not parroting of ideas. So in spirit, this is a different type of contest. And that's why I was saying that do not fall for the regular private Maths Olympiads, because they are not in spirit different. They are in spirit same as the engineering contest. They are asking the students to just remember some formulas and repeat those. That's not what you would want to do in the actual Maths Olympiad. So, in fact, I would tell you that in Cheenta, we work really hard to understand what type of mathematics Olympiads people have discovered and created in different parts of the world. And one of the greatest experiments with it happened in Moscow in 1980s. Russia and Eastern Europe has a very rich culture of mathematics contests and maths olympiads and mathematical circles. One of the greatest experiments was called Tournament of Towns. This is started in 1979, I think. So what these contests are particularly interesting because the problems that the students face in these contests require not formula but ingenuity. So even if you knew 10,000 formulas, you wouldn't be able to solve the problem by just plugging it in. In 21st century, this is even more important. Why? Because most of the computational type of problems will be done by machines 5-10 years from now. It's being done by machines right now. There are organizations like Wolfram Alpha. Even Microsoft has an app for that. You just take a picture of the problem, the machine solves it because it's just a template. You can just repeat and parrot and so on. That's not so. Even if you think from a teacher's perspective, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, how would you want your student to face the world? You want the student to be able to solve problems which the machines cannot solve. And the machines are getting really smart. I mean, so smart that you can perhaps all of you have faced some sort of a news of that kind, that how smart the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms have become. So you cannot just hope to teach some formulas and let the student succeed in the next decade. So in spirit, we think that this is the way forward. The four main themes of Math Olympiad are number theory, combinatorics, algebra, and geometry. If you do not know anything about mathematics, then I would just tell you that these are very interesting and engaging fundamental topics. So, for example, it doesn't contain calculus. Maths Olympiad does not test calculus anywhere in the world. Okay. So let me go to the last section of today's discussion, which is what is it? What is Math Olympiad? I've already touched upon this topic a little bit in the previous slide. I already discussed a little bit of it, not a lot, but I'll tell you one more thing that is extremely important in the preparation of this, in the entire preparation of this particular contest, and that is it has to be a collaborative sport. So you need to have people around you, students, teachers, who really engage with mathematics and this type of problems. I often call them dinner table problems. So when I used to do problems when I was younger, I still do this right now. I maintain a small pocket notebook, which always has one or two problems that I'm thinking about. I'm always thinking about. I'm drinking coffee. I think about those problems. I'm going to a party. I'm traveling by public transport. I have a little time in my hand. I just bring out the little notebook, comes out, and I think about those problems. And it's a sport. There is no rush to go to the end point. There is no rush to go to the end point. It's a style of living, you can say. Just like you consume literature, just like you consume music, you consume mathematics. That's the culture, that's a cultural perspective. So, how to help the child to get into this cultural sphere? The way you do it is there is no shortcut. What you do is you put the child with other kids and other teachers who are equally passionate and doing the same thing about mathematics. You just put the child there. If there is something nice about, if the wiring of the brain of the kid is favorable, then the child will take it from that ambience. That's the fundamental philosophy behind a beautiful experiment called mathematical circles. It happened in Russia in 1960s, and now it's all over the world. We try to run it in some parts of India. There is mathematical circles in United States, in Canada, and stuff like that. And the basic idea, the philosophy is this: don't try to teach anything actively. Put the child with other kids who are equally passionate about mathematics, and we can just hope that that passion is infectious. Of course, we have to select beautiful problems, and the teachers and the faculty members should be equally passionate about the subject. That's all you need. You need to just transmit the passion. If that happens, if the passion can be transmitted, then the rest of it is really simple. The child will pick it up. It's like music. You do not expect every student, every individual to be great at music. You don't expect that. You don't expect everyone to be as passionate about music as Lata Mangeshkar. The same thing works for this as well. You won't expect every child to be as passionate about mathematics as this. You just put them in a right kind of ambience and you see how it pans out. That's the notion of mathematics Olympiads. So I will open the floor for question. I'll just unmute it in case if you wanted to speak. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Kade, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So,
Virendra ma'am, do you want to ask Colonel Sudhir Behel sir? Would you like to ask any question?
I mean, you can also, yeah, you can ask me questions here, or you can email me, or I mean, Mr. Kade is there. You can contact him, and we can have a separate discussion session. That's possible as well. One of the things that I very strongly feel about is that one of the things that India needs to do well is innovation. Otherwise, we will always keep on doing accounting for the first word. I mean, the key innovations will happen in the first word, and we will keep on doing the paperwork for them. And the main damage that the British Empire did in India was not in terms of the money they looted, it's the mental space that they have created, the mental space of a follower, not an innovator.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so these attempts are really to help the next generation become leaders in thought space, at least, not just followers or slaves. The real slavery is inside the mind. It's not inside the cage. So that's what I strongly feel about, and that's, of course, we want to make money out of this entire process. This is a profitable organization that we have here, but the philosophical end of it is this as well. So anyway, if I think there is something is coming up in chat. Okay, so any questions, or Mr. Kher, if you wanted to have some If you get some questions, you can forward it to me, and we can discuss that and talk to others as well. Okay. Uh, okay. So should I just end this particular thing? Maybe I can do that.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes.